South Turtle Lake is a small freshwater lake located in Ottertail County, Minnesota. It's great for fishing, hunting, and loving every day. What else does this little lake have to offer? It's an underwater adventure. The mysteries of South Turtle Lake. Uncovered. If you drive 3 hours northwest from the cities, you will hit the very rural Ottertail County, Minnesota, the home of 1,048 different lakes. That is the most lakes in one county in the entire country. But today, we are only focusing on one lake. Right between Underwood and Battle Lake, it's South Turtle Lake. Covering 836 acres, this freshwater lake is home to many different aquatic plants and animals that all come together to form an ecosystem, or a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. How about we take a look at some of the organisms inhabiting this lovely lake? First up, and typically found close to shore and near bogs, is the snail. This snail is an invertebrate, which means it is lacking a backbone. The snail's role in an ecosystem is a decomposer, meaning that it decomposes organic material or it eats dead fish and plant matter. The snail reproduces sexually to keep gene complexity. This snail has a big shell that it can completely crawl inside of to protect its soft body from danger. Another organism inhabiting this ecosystem is lily pads. Lily pads are found in a place on the lake called Turtle Bay. Lily pads are producers of the ecosystem, meaning they make their own energy from the sun. Lily pads do this using a system called photosynthesis. Lily pads have a number of adaptations that help them survive in the water, including big leaves that float on the water's surface to attract sunlight for photosynthesis. The top side of the leaf is also covered with a cuticle to keep it as dry as possible. The underside has thorns to protect it against predators. Lily pads reproduce with seeds. Another organism in this lovely lake is the painted turtle. Also found in Turtle Bay, the painted turtle is a consumer of the ecosystem, meaning they generally obtain food by feeding on other organisms because they can't produce their own energy. Painted turtles reproduce sexually and lay eggs. They sometimes eat animals like fish, but mainly stick to leafy greens and aquatic plants. Some handy adaptations painted turtles have are that they can hibernate under ice. This is important when living in places with cold winters like Minnesota. These organisms all interact with each other too. The lily pads provide food or are eaten by the painted turtles. Then, when the painted turtles and lily pad die, the snail decomposes them. When the snail decomposes organisms like the lily pads and turtles, it makes the sea floor full of nutrients so the lily pad can grow better, in return giving turtles a more nutritious meal. Other than producer, consumer, and decomposer relationships, there are also other relationships in this South Turtle ecosystem. But to see those, we need to go fishing. The first relationship we will explore is the predator-prey relationship. A predator is an organism that naturally preys on others, and prey is an organism that is hunted and killed by another for food. In this relationship, the largemouth bass is the predator, and the prey is a sunny. The largemouth bass is the main predator of the sunny in South Turtle Lake, more so than northern pike and walleye. The second relationship in this ecosystem is a parasite-host relationship. A parasite is an organism that lives in or on another organism and benefits by deriving nutrients at the other organism's expense. A host is the organism the parasite takes advantage of. In our example, a black crappie is the host, and its parasite is cestodes, which is a fish-affecting tapeworm. Some effects the tapeworm has on crappies are destroying tissues, removing blood, diverting part of its nutrient supply, and allowing secondary infections to develop. All of the different organisms we have talked about all belong in their own population, which is a particular section or type of organism living in an area. In this case, the area is South Turtle Lake. All the populations in South Turtle Lake make up a community. Let's look at some more populations in this community and how they interact. One population is the common loon. It is the state bird in Minnesota and is often found on South Turtle Lake. Another population is the pumpkin seed, a type of panfish that is very common in South Turtle Lake. There's also the walleye. They have a very small population in South Turtle Lake and are very rarely caught, but they are still a part of the community. These organisms interact in the community like this. The loon will eat the walleye and the walleye will eat the pumpkin seed fish. The loon will also eat the pumpkin seed fish, so there is sometimes competition between the walleye and loon for food. Now that we have talked about some of the organisms in the ecosystem, let's talk a little about abiotic and biotic factors found in South Turtle Lake. Biotic factors are factors created by a living thing or any living component within an environment. So I guess all of the organisms we have named are considered biotic factors. But what about abiotic factors? Well, an abiotic factor is a non-living condition or thing that influences or affects an ecosystem and the organisms in it. One abiotic factor that affects the ecosystem is the sun. The sun affects the ecosystem by providing the producers, like lily pads and cattails, with sunlight so they can produce their own food and energy. Another abiotic factor is rocks. They affect the ecosystem by keeping sand down so the water clarity is suitable for fish. They also help hold down producers like seaweed so they can stay rooted in or on the sea floor. Finally, one of the most important abiotic factors in South Turtle would need to be water. It is what makes up almost the entire ecosystem and provides a place for all the organisms to live. Now, what about humans? How do they affect the ecosystem? Well, first let's look at the activities humans participate in on South Turtle. They fish, drive boats, and do water sports. How do these activities affect the ecosystem? Well, boats produce a wake, which may in turn create waves that propagate outward until dissipated at the shoreline. This can cause something called shoreline erosion. Shoreline erosion is a term that refers to the process by which soil particles located along riverbanks or lake shores become detached and transported by water currents or wave energy. Shoreline erosion may affect water clarity in near-shore areas, shading submerged aquatic plants, like seaweed, making it difficult to receive the sunlight they need to stay alive. Some solutions could be maintaining and restoring natural shorelines. This would help reduce the impacts of all types of waves on shoreline erosion. Another solution could be no-wake zones. No-wake zones are designed to minimize boat wake, so the obvious solution would be to use no-wake zones to limit shoreline erosion. Another impact of boat driving on lakes is it can disturb fish from their nests, and of much greater concern is the effect of boats on fish habitats. Like mentioned earlier, shoreline erosion and propeller damage can affect many factors like water quality, water clarity, and aquatic plants, which subsequently may impact fish populations. Some solutions could be keeping boats out of known fish spawning areas. This may help to improve overall fish success. A more useful approach would be to protect shallow waters and plant beds from boat activity through the use of, yes, no-wake zones. No-wake zones in prime fishing areas may also help to reduce user conflicts by creating a separation between fishers and high-speed boaters that may be doing something like water sports. As you can see, there's more to this little lake than what meets the eye. It's chock full of many different organisms and interactions. This was Mysteries of South Turtle Lake Uncovered. Make sure to tune in next week for when we explore Lake Minnetonka.